What if the most powerful laboratory in the world isn't a university? It's your phone. Tonight on Redacted Frequencies, we're looking at how social media trains your brain for quick hits of reward, fragments your attention, and reshapes your sleep.
And the science isn't simple. Population averages show small effects, but we're finding that certain teens and, let's be honest, night-scrolling adults may be at a much higher risk.
Well, unpack the actual changes happening in the brain, dig into why outrage goes viral, and explore how to reclaim focus without having to quit the internet entirely. You're listening to Redacted Frequencies. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Echo. So, Cypher, let's just dive right in. The U.S. Surgeon General put out this advisory in 2023, and the numbers are pretty staggering. How bad is it?
It paints a stark picture, Echo. The advisory warns that up to 95% of teens are on social media. That's almost all of them. But the real kicker is that a third of them report using it almost constantly.
Constantly. I mean, I feel that. It's the first thing I look at in the morning, the last thing at night. But for teens whose brains are still in these really vulnerable development years, that feels significant.
It is, and it's starting younger than anyone thinks. The advisory points out that around 40% of kids aged 8 to 12 are using platforms that have a 13-plus minimum age requirement.
Wow! So it really makes you question this default assumption we all have that teens just have to be online. Is that actually based on evidence, or is it just something we've accepted?
That's the core question. And to answer it, we have to look at what's happening inside the brain, specifically what a simple like does to the adolescent brain. The neuroscience here is fascinating.
Okay, so break it down for us. I post a picture, the likes start rolling in. What's my brain doing?
Researchers using fMRI scans have shown that receiving likes activates the brain's reward circuitry. We're talking about the ventral striatum and the nucleus accumbens. These are the same areas that light up for things like food, money, and social acceptance.
So it's a genuine biological reward. That little red heart notification is a dopamine hit.
Exactly. And for teens who are biologically wired to be highly sensitive to peer endorsement, it's incredibly powerful. The studies even showed that this reward activation can reduce cognitive control when they're viewing risky images. It's like the validation from peers overrides their critical thinking.
It's a new kind of social currency. It's almost like likes feel like feedback. Sometimes they're just slot machine polls. You post, pull the lever, and hope for a jackpot of validation.
That's a perfect analogy. And this reward system doesn't just shape our behavior, it shapes the content we see. The algorithms are designed to find what triggers the strongest reaction, which leads us to emotion and virality.
You mean the stuff that makes us angry or shocked? I swear my feed is full of it some days.
Precisely. One study from PNAS found that adding a single moral emotional word to a political message increased its diffusion online by about 20%. Words like shame, disgust, hate.
20% per word, that's huge! So if you craft a post with 3 or 4 of those words, you're almost doubling its chances of going viral. The algorithm is basically an outrage amplifier.
It privileges emotion, novelty, and outrage. And it's not just about opinions. Another landmark study in science found that false news spreads farther, faster, and deeper than true news. And they found it was driven by humans, not bots, because we're drawn to novelty and surprise.
So our own psychology is being used to feed us the most shocking and often least true information. You could really say that engagement is an emotion engine.
And this engine doesn't just spread misinformation, it builds entire realities around us. This leads us to the problem of the filter bubble or the echo chamber. It is, and all this emotional, rapid-fire content has another effect. It shatters our ability to focus. This brings us to attention fragmentation.
Oh, I feel this one in my bones. I'll be trying to read an article, but I'm also checking email, glancing at a text. It feels impossible to just do one thing.
There's a reason for that. Research by Ophir, Nass, and Wagner looked at heavy media multitaskers versus light ones. They found that the heavy multitaskers were actually worse at filtering out distractions and worse at switching between tasks.
Wait, worse? You'd think they'd be better at it, like they're exercising a muscle.
Counterintuitively, no. It seems that by constantly switching, they're training their brains to be distractible. They're developing what's called shallow attention as a trained default state. The question becomes, can we retrain our brains for depth?
So it's like, your attention is a budget. Who's spending it? It sounds like we're letting dozens of apps spend it for us, leaving nothing for the things that really matter.
A perfect way to put it. Now, with all this talk of reward circuits and fragmented attention, the obvious question is social media just plain bad for our well-being? And the data here is complicated.
Complicated how? It seems like a pretty clear-cut case so far.
Well, when you look at massive population datasets like the work by Orban and Przybylski, the average correlation between social media use and well-being is actually very small. Often it accounts for less than 1% of the variance in a person's happiness.
Less than 1%? So all this panic is for nothing?
Not at all. The problem is that averages can be incredibly misleading. The effects are what we call heterogeneous. It depends entirely on the person and the context.
Okay, so you're saying for 10 people it might have zero effect on 9 of them, but be really damaging for that one person, and the average just washes it out.
Exactly. The average hides the high-risk subgroups. And the data consistently points to certain groups being more vulnerable. For instance, adolescent girls or teens with pre-existing internalizing disorders like anxiety or depression. For them, the effect isn't small at all.
That makes so much sense because you're not just scrolling, you're comparing, which brings us right to social comparison and body image, doesn't it?
It does. This is where the risk for those subgroups becomes crystal clear. Adolescents with those internalizing conditions report engaging in far more social comparison online. And they also report a greater negative mood impact from the feedback they receive or don't receive.
It's the highlight reel effect. You're comparing your messy, real life behind the scenes to everyone else's perfectly curated highlight reel. And for a teen girl already struggling, that comparison could be brutal. We saw that with the internal data leaks from certain companies, right? They knew this was happening.
Correct. Those internal documents raised major concerns specifically about the impact on teen girls and body image. It creates these feedback-driven mood swings where your self-worth is tied to the constant, algorithmically driven judgment of your peers.
And if you're doing all this comparing late at night in bed, I imagine that doesn't help either. Let's talk about sleep.
A critical piece of the puzzle. The science here is very robust. Evening exposure to blue and bright light like that from our phone screens can suppress the release of melatonin.
So melatonin is the hormone that tells our body it's time to sleep, right?
Yes, so by scrolling, you're actively delaying the onset of sleep and degrading the quality of the sleep you do get. Now, the magnitude of this effect depends on things like the light's intensity, the duration you're exposed, the timing, and your own individual sensitivity. But the effect is real.
So what actually works for sleep hygiene? We hear all these tips, but what does the science say?
The biggest factor is creating a screen-free buffer before bed, 60 to 90 minutes. Get the phone out of the bedroom. The basics are often ignored, but they are the most powerful tools we have. After all, sleep is the brain's nightly reset. Don't trade it for infinite scroll.
That infinite scroll, it feels like it was designed to be addictive, which I guess brings us to the actual design of these platforms. It's not an accident. We can't look away, is it?
Not in the slightest. This is the field of algorithm design and persuasive UX, or user experience. Features like infinite scroll, autoplay on videos, and push notifications are engineered to exploit our attentional vulnerabilities.
And the variable rewards we talked about earlier, the likes, that's the slot machine again. You never know when you'll get a reward, so you just keep pulling the lever, refreshing the feed.
Precisely. It's all designed to maximize one key performance indicator, or KPI, time on platform. So here's a thought experiment for you, Echo. Which features would you redesign if the KPI were suddenly changed from watch time to user well-being?
Oh, wow. Okay. I'd get rid of infinite scroll. The feed would have a natural end, like a magazine. I'd turn off autoplay by default, and maybe the platform would send you a notification after 30 minutes that says, "Hey, you've been here a while. Go look at a tree."
I like it. It's about building in friction instead of removing it, which leads perfectly into the official recommendations. What are the practical safeguards that bodies like the APA and the Surgeon General are suggesting?
I assume look at a tree is not on the official list.
Not yet, but their recommendations are very much in that spirit. Both advisories from 2023 recommend active parental coaching on social media use, not just passive monitoring. They strongly suggest delaying social media entirely until after middle school.
That seems like a huge challenge for parents when all their kids' friends are already on there.
It is, which is why they also talk about community norms. Getting groups of parents to agree to delay together can reduce that social pressure. Other recommendations are more direct, turning off all notifications overnight, creating family media plans with clear rules, and device curfews.
It's about creating structure where the apps are designed to have none. So this is what the institutions say, but what about us? As individuals, how do we start reclaiming our own attention?
This is the final and most important step, skill building. We can't just expect our willpower to work against supercomputers. We need concrete practices, things like detox protocols and slow media diets.
Okay, give us some examples. What can someone listening right now actually do today?
First, notification triage. Go into your settings and turn off every single notification that doesn't come from a real human being. Second, try grayscale mode. It makes your phone significantly less appealing to your reward circuits. Third, batch your usage. Instead of checking apps constantly, set aside 2 or 3 specific times per day.
I love that. It's about being intentional. So here's a challenge for our listeners and maybe for us too, Cypher. Let's try an experiment, a 7-day attention reset. So for 1 week, try these practices and see how you feel.
An excellent idea. And to recap, those actionable takeaways for everyone are: first, turn off all non-human notifications. Batch the rest.
Second, put the phone outside the bedroom and give yourself a 60 to 90 minute screen-free window before you go to sleep.
Third, use grayscale mode. And for the 2 apps you use most compulsively, remove their shortcuts from your home screen. Add that little bit of friction.
Fourth, as part of that 7-day reset, try single tasking. Use a timer for 25 to 45-minute deep work blocks with no distractions.
And finally, fifth, audit your feeds. Intentionally follow 5 high-signal, valuable accounts. And just as importantly, mute 20 low-value accounts that just generate noise or outrage. Curate your input.
It's a lot to think about, but it feels empowering. We don't have to be passive users of this technology.
That's the key. Agency. You have more control than you think. That's all the time we have for this episode of Redacted Frequencies. Next time, we're going even deeper down the rabbit hole to investigate the cult that runs Hollywood and why no one talks about it.
You won't want to miss that one. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and like the video if you're watching on YouTube. I'm Echo.
And I'm Cypher. Stay vigilant.